you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the December the 27th, 2022 edition of the Counter Racist Code Show, or the CRCS, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we are delighted to have you be part of today's show. Thank you for listening and being a part of today's show. You make it better, so thank you. All righty. Let me say this. To get in contact with today's show, all you simply have to do is dial this number, which is 516-453-9921. And be sure, if you have a comment, to press the number 1 button, as John has done. Thank you, John. If you're on the line and you have pressed that button, make sure that you give the call screener your name, whether it's Robert or Sharon or Moon Pie or whoever else is back there. Make sure you give them your name so that I can properly give you an introduction. Okay, can you do that for me? That'd be good. Now, if you would like to Gmail me, do that. That is at this address, the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Now, I cannot promise you, well, I don't do that anyway, but I will not promise you that your Gmail will be read on today's program, but at some time it will be read, and I will send you my symbol to let you know that I have received your Gmail, and when I do read it, I will also get in communication with you the date and time so that you can hear your question being read and possibly Mr. Fuller's response to that. Okay. And finally, you can do this. If you would like a question or have a question or comment in the chat room, you can do that. All you have to do is go to blogtalkradio.com. You want to make sure that you click on where it says programs, and you want to click the Produce Justice Show. When you do that, then the chat room becomes available to you. You click that, and you are in. And one of the things that you will notice when you get in there is that Constructive Action Items has given you a list of topics that we have discussed in the previous show, and there are some lively discussions that are in there, and occasionally I will glean from that and say something. But this is what I do not want you to do, ma'am or sir. If you have a question for Mr. Fuller, do not use the chat room for me to ask your question to Mr. Fuller. That's what the Gmail is for, and that's what the number is for. So you can do it that way, and Mr. Fuller will answer your question or suggest an answer to your question. So if you do that, you'll be good. Okay. So thank you, Corey. Thank you, George, for following instructions. I have your name. Now, this is important. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. Some of you will forget, but keep this in mind. We will be taking a week, next week, January the 3rd. We will be off the air. January the 3rd only. We will return on January the 10th. Now, listeners can still tune in at the same time to hear a rebroadcast of a previous show, but we will not be taking any calls next week. That's next week. The live show will return on January the 10th, 2023, at the usual time, which is 9 a.m. here in the Northwestern Hemisphere. Can you do that? Tell somebody else, too, and I guess I will repeat this again, okay? All right. I think that's all the house cleaning that I have to do today. So let me present the sum and introduce to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning, sounding strong this morning. Okay, last week you started off last week's show with this thoughts and expressions of the mind of Neely Fuller, Jr., and you went on planning. What offering do you have for us this week of thoughts and expressions on the mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr.?
Well, I was thinking about what white people are thinking about now. We went through the Black Lives Matter era where black and white people, mostly younger people, were demonstrating in the streets just a short time ago. And now a lot of controversies come up in the schools, I understand, about critical race theory and what should be taught, what should not be taught. And many white people have said, well, we have gone about as far as we can go. And we're fed up with this whole thing of talking about race, period. And we've done our part, so black people don't seem to know what plans they have or what they really want us to do. And so now it seems like all they want to do is just blame us for everything that's going wrong in their lives, and they don't have any plans for their own lives. And so we're just getting weary of the whole thing. And one way that we'll start approaching it is that we're just tired of talking about it. And black people don't seem to have any plan. They just have a lot of slogans, and they want to demonstrate and turn over cars and want us to march with them and talk about something that ought to be done. But they don't have a plan. It don't seem like they're doing anything but killing each other. So we're just weary of the whole thing. And that seems to be the picture. If I got it correct, I think I have. And so many of the white people who consider themselves thinkers and scholars and people who are genuinely trying to help are just saying, what do you want us to do? You're not talking about it. You're just talking in circles. You're just ranting and raving and sloganeering. Black Lives Matter, and why don't somebody do something? Somebody like who? You're somebody, I guess you say that, you black people. So we're just fed up. Or we're getting that way, and it seems like you want us to be just more that way. So in response to that, what I'm saying, Neely Fuller's saying, according to the code, what is the best thing to talk to white people about when they say they don't want to hear anything more about any critical race theory or any other kind of theory dealing with race? They're sick of it. So the crucial question is, do we have a race problem? The answer is yes. Everybody agrees on that. So what Neely Fuller is saying, according to codified logic, compensatory counter-racist logic, is that going into the next year, We'll just ask white people. Now, this will be the standard question. What is your plan for solving the race problem? And when can I, talking about yourself, expect that your plan to have solved the race problem? What is your plan for solving the race problem? I'm not going to say anything. I'll just listen to what your plan is for solving the race problem. And when can I, as a black person, you can put that in there, or a non-white person, or person of color, whichever way you find it convenient to say it, expect your plan to have solved the race problem. What is your plan for solving the race problem? And this is in a collegiate setting, or in any meeting, or anybody who's just talking anything directly or indirectly, if that person is white, about the race problem. Don't come in there with a complaint in the year going forward of any kind, or start talking about what you think the race problem ought to be. Just ask white people. Since you're fed up, and there is a problem, everybody agrees on that, problems are made to be solved. So just ask the white people. You don't want us to teach it in the schools and all like that, all the things you don't want. What about the things you do want? Which means you must have a plan for the things you want. And we'll work it from there. Forget about the things that I want as a black person. What is your plan as a white person to just settle this whole thing? I'll just be quiet, except to keep asking you, what's your solution to this problem? Starting off with asking you, do you still recognize that there is a problem? And what is your plan for solving the problem? Forget about my plan. Since you say that I don't have one, or that I'm not making sense, or you don't want to talk about history, want to ban all the history from the history books, if that's what you're saying, and you can ask each individual white person that, are you going to just ban history? Because we are part of history. A part of your history, you're a part of mine. So you're going to stop talking about history altogether? Every historian now doesn't have a job. See, these are questions you can ask going forward into 2023. Seems like everything is confused and chaotic and such a mess. Well, how do you dispel or get rid of chaos? By questions and answers. That's how all problems are solved. But if you're going to say that one thing you can't question, one thing you can't provide answers for, or you're going to provide an answer, it's not going to include anything that's historical. Because when you start talking about black history, that's not in some box somewhere hidden in the desert, even though you might want it to be that way. Black people are part of everybody's history. So you would have to talk about or think seriously about saying we're not going to talk about anything that happened in the past, whether it's black history, white history, the Holocaust, World War II, the Civil War, no more reenactments about that, because we're going to say, we don't know nothing about it. And it didn't happen. Even if it did happen, it ain't worth remembering. So this thing called the Civil War and George Washington and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Thomas Jefferson, forget about it. It didn't happen. Erase it. Don't come in these walls called a university or in elementary school talking about anything that happened in the past. Now we got to come to a question of how far in the past. You can't talk about what happened yesterday. If there was a shooting in the school, that's history. See, these are the questions that should be thought about, if not asked. And these questions should be asked of white people, who now seem to be going in the direction of saying abolish history from being taught anywhere about anything. Yesterday is yesterday. Let it die. Let's talk about what's happening right this minute. Don't talk about what happened 15 minutes ago. That's history. Don't come in here talking about what happened 2 days ago, or what your grades were, even though the tests were given 2 days ago. Today is the day. Let's talk about what's happening today, and not only right today, but right this minute. Don't talk about what happened 5 minutes ago. That's history. These are the kind of questions that can be discussed right now. These are things that are on my mind.
Okay.
But like I said, if white people don't want to talk about solving the race problem, except having their approach to it, we want to find out what it is. What is your plan for solving the race problem? We'll just put aside black people's plans altogether and just find out what your plan is for solving the race problem, and when, so that they don't stall, can we expect it to be solved? And just ask every white person that. You must have a plan. You don't agree with what we're doing. None of us. You're sick and tired of hearing it. So what's your plan? And just wait for them to answer. And like the code says, when you ask a person a question, don't argue about the answer. Just have another question ready. All problems are solved through the process of questions and answers.
Yes, sir.
That's the code. Now, I've had my say about that. Now we can take calls.
All righty. This is what we will do. A response to that. There's 2 responses to that in the chat. By the way, I forgot to mention that if you are a first-time caller calling this number, 516-453-9921, be sure to tell the call screener that you are a first-time caller or new caller, and we have something set up especially for you, and you will be heard. Especially for you, Christopher, from Richmond. We will get to you. But 2 comments from the chat room. This is why you should go into the chat room, because you get different opinions. Justice Warrior wrote, "You're wrong, Mr. Fuller. I wish you would speak to the black people in the chat here and not the ignorant masses among us. We're not out here outraged over race soldiers doing what we know they're doing or going to do. And many of us do have plans for race. Black Lives Matter is a joke to us. Controlled opposition set up to keep the masses of people confused and distracted. Most of us here believe in black economic empowerment, going on code and exposing the system of white supremacy. We don't have time for gossip, showing off to other Negroes, rioting in the streets, and etc." Another comment from Rita 888 says this: "It appears to me that most black folks focus mostly on other black folks. Social media is full of bloggers talking about Meg Thee Stallion, Ye, Tia, Tamara, Real Housewives, etc. Imagine if we stopped talking about each other and started to address real problems. Let us know what you think. You can get into the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. When you get on there, you want to hit where it says programs. Hit the produce. When you do that, then the Produce Justice show will come up. You hit that, and then I think it's to the right. The chat room becomes available. You can do that and get in there and give your 2 cents. Who knows? I may even read that. But in the meantime and in between time, let's go to the phone lines, and we're going to start off with our first-time caller from Richmond. Get ready, Christopher. Be brief. Here we go. Let me see if I can get you in here. Okay, Christopher, good morning and welcome to the program. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, you two. Thank you for having me on. My question is, how do you know when something is constructive to you personally or constructive to white supremacy?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
You'll know it when you know it. It's just like inventing something. You'll know that the electric light is the electric light when you turn on the electric light. I have a quote here from Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein says, "It's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer." Now, I think that's something to be thought about. Mr. Albert Einstein was kind of known to be a very thoughtful person. So in connection with the caller's question, how do you know it? You know it when you see it. You know that the crops that you plant, you were expecting some okra, and you were expecting an excellent crop this year because you did everything you were supposed to do, and the weather cooperated with you, say if you're a farmer. Well, if you go through the procedures that it takes to grow okra, and you get all types of cooperation from the weather, from the people who gave you the seeds for okra, the soil is the type that is correct for growing okra, and you have the machinery and the equipment and the people who are out there planting the seeds and doing the harvesting at harvest time, and everything is timed correctly for growing okra, the result should be okra. That's how you know. You know it when you see it. Not when somebody says that this is a hypothesis or if this and if that. Just go through the procedures to the best of your ability that you have been told will work. And that should give you your answer. When you actually see the result of what it is you are trying to do. Now, there's something that comes before that. It's called hope. And that's something I often refer to the movie Shawshank Redemption and people probably get tired of me saying that, but it's a lot of lessons in that movie. And it's a prison movie. The characters are in prison. Black people know a lot about that, particularly black males and a growing number of black females all over the world. And we're all in prison, really. It's just that they put us in narrow boxes, that's all. But if you're a person of color, you're in prison, then that's another story. But in answer to your question, Mr. Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, I think he was the one who coined the phrase, keep hope alive. Well, in the movie Shawshank Redemption, the character handed a frame says to a character named Red, a black character, that what kept him going when he was in solitary confinement was the sounds of music. He said that kept me hopeful. Said that, says the easiest time I ever did was in solitary confinement because he had music in his head that he could remember the notes, and that kept him from what you might call going crazy while he was in solitary confinement. And so later on, he reminded Red of that. He said, remember, Red, hope, and I've written the quote down here, hope is a good thing, probably the best of things. I looked in the dictionary. This is me. And it says, hope, a feeling, it's a feeling. Hope is a feeling that what is wanted will happen. Now we get to that word wanted. And I'll talk about that later, right out of the code book. Wants. Everybody wants something. Well, hope is a feeling that what is wanted will happen. That's what hope is, according to Webster's New World Dictionary, 3rd College Edition, 1988. That's the dictionary I happen to have that I was looking at. And I have another thing here about hope. Of all this is a quote from someone unknown. Of all the forces that make for a better world, none is so powerful as hope. With hope, you can think, you can work, one can dream. If you have hope, and here's the punchline, if you have hope, you have everything. Now, that's pretty strong language. If you have hope, you have everything. But in response to the caller, they say that set your goal. That seems to be the picture that's being given. Set your goal no matter how far that goal seems to be. Just keep on working in that direction. Just keep on going. Keep on keeping going. Keeping on. Like that's what Einstein was saying. It's not that I'm so smart. It's just that I stay with problems longer. A lot of people that say, I'm going to get rid of my problems. I'm committing suicide. And the suicide rate among black people, young black people, is going up. Why? Because they can't get what they want right this minute. But most of the philosophers say, down through the ages, thousands of years, they just keep on keeping on. Keep hope alive. Keep hoping. And what does the dictionary say? Not Neely Fuller's definition. The Standard English Dictionary says, a feeling that what is wanted will happen. Just keep going in that direction. Memphis Slim says. As you go through life, you can't help knowing. You can always get help, but only the way you're going. And that's connected with that word hope. And it's connected with the word persistence. Einstein, stay with the problem longer. You got the problem. Don't give up in solving it. Just keep on plugging away.
All righty. Thank you, Christopher, from Richmond. Do not be a stranger. And I hope the best for you, and I hope that we're able to get through all of the calls this day. All righty, let's take a break. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, if you would like to get in contact with the show, you know the number. Here it is for those that don't know, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button so that hand can go up and I can see it. And eventually I will get to your call. You will get an order. Just make sure you give the call screener your name, and then you will get in line. If you are a new caller like Christopher was, make sure you tell the call screener that you are a new caller and we have something special for you. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And when I get it, I will send you a symbol to let you know that I have it. Now, you probably will not be read on today's program, but at some time it will be, and I will alert you that your Gmail is being read and Mr. Fuller is responding to it. And lastly, you can get into the chat room. And there's some hot and heavy conversations in the chat room, and it's filling up. Good. Go to blogtalkradio.com, and when you do, click on where it says programs. When you click that, then shows, in particular, the Produced Justice show will come up. You click that, and the chat room is available for you to enter in and enjoying the conversation. As you well know, occasionally I will read a couple of responses, as I have done today, at what some of the chatters have said. Okay. Oh, yes, must do this. Listen. Tell anybody that listens to the program that may not be listening right now that next week, January the 3rd, we will have no show, but there will be a rebroadcast of a previous show. That means don't call, and you know how we are. Somebody's going to call anyway, and I'll get some Gmails. Are you guys live today? It always happens. But don't call because there won't be a show next week. But Robert, Sharon, Moon Pie informed me, especially Robert, that we will be back live on January the 10th, 2023. We'll be back live. Batteries charged up and we're ready to go. So keep that in mind and tell somebody that may not know. And speaking about not knowing, listen, make sure, particularly if you're a new caller, everything that is discussed in this show is found in the book that Mr. Fuller has written. It is called the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. You can get this book by going to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com, and there is a lot of information on that page. Past shows, upcoming shows perhaps, and information on how to order this book, this guide, this code. You need it, so you can do that. Okay? All right. Let me see if I can go back. All right, back to the phone lines. We're going down to Houston, where my buddy John is there. And do we have a problem this morning, John? Here we go. There you go.
Houston, we have a problem.
Uh-oh.
Grand Risings, gentlemen. Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller Jr., for the last time in 2022, before we kick this to the curb, I have a VGQ and a question for your consideration. You may or may not remember a person referred to as the Pharma Bro, Martin Shkreli, front page of the Business Insider News this morning. He was referred to as such because back in 2015, he hiked up AIDS medication and many other pharmaceuticals to astronomical amounts. In the case of AIDS treatment, from $13 to $750. Quoted this morning in the newspaper, Farmer Bro Martin Shkreli advised Sam Bankman-Fried on potential prison time, saying that the disgraced FTX founder should prepare by listening to rap music, deepening his voice, and shaving his head. Now, by that, I will segue to my question to you, Mr. Fuller, and thank you for your wisdom and being the excellent elder, at least for me. 93 years ago, you were born in the year and in the month of the great stock market crash of 1929. What is your advice for us to either learn, as you just said, some very interesting, insightful things about history shall not be regarded by so-called white people, but what should we learn in the wake of the initials SBF for Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX for the cryptocurrency exchange that I believe is the first domino for possibly this roaring 20s great stock market crash and the financial collapse of the white supremacist system worldwide? And I'd love to stay on to listen to his response, Mr. Bobby.
You got
as you asked, Houston, we have a problem.
All righty. All right. Thank you, John. Mr. Fuller?
Well, if I can sort something out of all of that that's being said, quite a bit was said. I was trying to get to the question. And so the question, I guess, is, what do you do when there's a money shortage? You hold on to the money that you can get your hands on. It's very simple. Codification, get right to the point. We've been doing a lot of spending, and a lot of people have said, hold on to your money. Stop just running out buying stuff because somebody says that stuff is to be bought. Anything that you buy, make sure that you can use it, most likely, to accumulate more money. How about that? That's what I would say. That seems to be logical. Compensatory codification is about doing what is logical. If you don't need to spend, don't spend. Spend money for things that you need. Try that for a change. Not just something that you see advertised or something that you see in a window or something that you see somebody else has. And that is definitely, at all times, not a guide for doing anything. Doing anything just because you see somebody else doing it. Many black people have that habit. Whatever they see somebody else doing, me too. Me too. But it doesn't apply to you in most cases. Or in some cases, if it doesn't fit into your scenario, your quote-unquote lifestyle, if it's not constructive for you, don't touch it. Everybody's different. Everybody's similar, but everybody's different. There's no person in the universe exactly like you. And stop trying to be somebody else or be like somebody else. I don't care who it is. You are you. Be yourself once you find out who you are and what your mission is supposed to be. And it'll come to you, whether you ignore it or not, what your mission is. And that's how you handle the stock market up or down or whatever else is going on in the world. Look at yourself and say, what problems do I have, and what's the best way to solve them? And if someone is near and dear to me, what's the best way to help them solve their problems? Because that most likely is my assignment. Solve my problems, solve the problems of the people I encounter who need their problems solved, and I can help. And they can help me. We help each other solve each other's problems. Now, why should that be the mission? Because that seems to be the logic of the universe. You can't solve problems that you don't even know about, but the ones that you know about, just like a laser, focus on them if there are problems that need to be solved for you. And most likely, everybody has some problems to be solved. And like I said just a little earlier, a few minutes earlier, you have hopes. Then you make a plan, like Andy Dufresne did in the movie Shawshank. He had hopes. He was in prison. He had hopes of getting out. But then, at the same time, he was working on, all those years, a plan for getting out to back up his hopes. You just can't sit by the side of the road and look up in the sky or down the road and keep saying, well, something will happen. They'll take care of all my problems. You have hands, you have eyes, you have a brain. You wouldn't need any of these things if they weren't supposed to be used by whatever created you to do what? Solve problems. That's what we're here for. Mm-hmm. According to Neely Fuller, no. According to the logic that's right there in front of you. It came with the universe.
Yes, sir. All righty. All right, John from Houston, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I will keep you there so that you may continue to listen to the program. Interesting word in the chat room. Constructive action items has written this. Be advised, suspected racist white supremacists in the chat. Then it moves on. A test for racial population tailoring. Now, for those who are new to the program, Mr. Fuller has written a book, and a lot of this, it's in the book, that term, racial tailoring. And then in the word guide, there are some words in there. And in regards to what the racist man and racist woman do, as she mentioned, be advised, because they're on here, particularly this word she wrote, basically, that was my word, basically, they only see nigger and nigger lover in the word guide. And that's on page 261. And Mr. Fuller gave a description, notes, correct usage and incorrect usage of that. Now, if you don't have the word guide, if you don't have any of the books, go to producejustice.com and get that and look at the suggestions that Mr. Fuller has made concerning this. There are other words in there too, but I point that out because this is some of the conversations that go in to the word guide or in the chat room, excuse me. All right, let's move on. Thank you, John, and thank you, Mr. Fuller, for the word guide. Corey, get ready. We're going up to old Milwaukee. Okay, wait a minute, Corey. Let me see if I can tune you in. Yeah, there we go. Corey, good morning, and how are you?
I'm still learning also.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Good morning, sir.
I would like to say that, Mr. Fuller, your initial thoughts about asking white people what is their plan for solving the race problem. I'm going to implement that into my code and follow that. What I'd like to express, and if you would choose to speak more upon it, is from page 114 of the Word Guide, the word failure. You say, failure, use this word with caution. Think, speak, and act as if there is no failure in what a person is trying to do until he or she stops trying to do it and never tries again. I really appreciate that definition, and if you choose to speak more upon it, that's fine. Thank you very much for...
I forgot what I wrote. Okay, but you're telling me to elaborate?
Yes, sir.
So I'm not looking at it right now. So what do you, if you're looking at it, what's your question? First of all, what word are you talking about?
The word failure.
Failure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Failure.
What did I say about it in the Word Guide?
You say, use this word with caution.
Mm-hmm.
Think, speak, and act as if there is no failure in what a person is trying to do until he or she stops trying to do it and never tries again. And why is this important for us as black people to realize this, that there is no failure?
Yes, we're put here to solve problems according to logic. Why? What's the logic? What's the evidence of that statement I just made? We're put here to solve problems because we have problems. Whatever created us meaning all things, trees, water, and something also was put here called problems that people have, that creatures have. All creatures, birds, bugs, alligators, deer, they have problems. And they try to solve their problems. Birds sometimes will look at the environment and say, we got a problem here. I can't find food, and the environment here is not the type of environment where I can do some nesting successfully. I mean, I'm putting out these eggs. They're supposed to produce offspring for me, and I turn them loose into the world, keep that going. But this environment is not conducive for that. So I got wings. I was issued wings by whatever created me. That's the bird talking to itself. Like people, talk to yourself. Why am I here? Here to solve problems. So the bird says, oh, let's see now. Seems like the other birds, they fly south. Why? Because they got to change their environment to suit what it is they want at the time that they want it. Might be nesting. It might be food that they're going after. All the food is covered up here. Snows all the time. Can't get food. The trees are bare. I'm going somewhere where the trees are lush. It's got all kinds of fruit growing on those trees. And birds like fruit. So they fly where the fruit is. They don't head where the fruit is not. Why? Because that's not logical. So people can study sometimes creatures and learn. Somebody wrote a book I read somewhere a few years ago. Somebody wrote it. The title of the book was Everything I Need to Know I Learned from My Cat. Now, I never read that book, but that's saying quite a lot. Everything that you needed to know, you learned from your cat. That would be my question, and it is my question. But I'd have to read the book to find out. I haven't read the book. So I get my answer, I guess, by reading that book. But that is something to think about. Everything that this particular author needed to know, he said he learned from his cat. Studying his cat, the way his cat went about doing things. Now, that seems like a tall order to me. I mean, but here again, he thought about it. I thought about it. And what it seems to me without reading the book, I don't think you can learn everything from your cat, but maybe you can. I'd have to read his book to find out if that's possible, if that's logical. So we, to use a cliche saying, live and learn. But in answer to your question about failure, you just say, even if I fail, I haven't failed. As long as I'm keep going in the direction or keep trying to accomplish what I'm supposed to be trying to accomplish. And like I'm trying to solve the race problem. People have told me, well, you're going to fail at that. Because that ain't going to never happen. I've been told that by black people. And I say, well, like somebody told me something one time, and he kept at it, and it happened. I told this guy he couldn't sing, and he said, I'm going to try. That was his response to me. And his name wasn't recognized then by some people in the show business or in the singing business, but that's my actual experience. Neely Fuller did that. I told a fellow, he was singing a song, and I told him, I heard him while he was trying to sing what I thought he was trying to sing. To him, he was singing. And I said, why don't you stop making all that noise? You can't sing anyway. Now, that person's name was Herb. Later on, he was Peaches and Herb, or Herb. Now, that's an experience that I had myself.
Yes, sir.
And the next thing you know, I saw him on television singing a song with a young lady named Peaches. It was Peaches and Herb. That same person that I told, Neely Fuller told him that he couldn't sing. And there he was singing. Some people may have heard of it, or from the old school, you might say. And I understand he still sings every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Peaches and Herb.
Yep, Peaches and Herb, exactly. All righty. Corey, Milwaukee, thank you for your call. Appreciate that. Listen up. Mr. Fuller had said something about save your money, and 888 Rita had made a beautiful comment. She said, Fuller is right, save your money. And that is true, save your money. But not only save it, don't let it sit there. Invest your money. In other words, make it grow. How do you make it grow? Many ways. You have to invest your time in stocks and bonds, government bonds, the ones that work. Stay away from the ones that do not work. Find financial planners or advisors to help you make the best decision for you that you make. So don't just have the money in your pocket and just leave it there or wherever you're going to leave it. Make it grow interest. And I'm telling you from personal experience, when you start doing that, your money grows. And you can do a lot of things with it, too. Don't love it, but make it grow. And one more thing before we go back to the phone calls. Those of you in the chat know exactly what is going on. I had mentioned it earlier about what construction action items has said. And it's there. It's present. They just want attention. That's all. But you can give them the attention by paying no attention. But that's okay, because they want that response from you. Don't even bite it. Okay, we got 5 minutes left in this particular segment. Hey, George, we got 5 minutes, man. Make it fast. George in Toronto, come on. You're there. Wait a minute. There you go, George. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Bobby, I believe you meant Cleo in Houston.
Well, okay. Come on, Cleo. Well, wait a minute. Hey, Cleo, hold tight, because I know you got something good to say, because you always I like what you say. So hang on for a minute. Let me get George. And you're right. I hit the wrong button. Shame on you, Mr. Bobby. All right, George, got you and Cleo mixed up. Do it, man.
All right. I was just thinking, I've heard you said before, Mr. Fuller, that insanity has become the norm with black people and white people. So I was wondering, what were you referring to? Were you referring to the behavior of white people and black people when they pursue glory, fun, and material comfort based on mistreating people?
Now your question was what?
You have said before that insanity has become the norm. I don't know if this is what you've said, but I thought I heard you say that insanity, being insane, it's a normal thing. So I was trying to figure out, when I thought I heard you say that, is insanity the norm because white people and black people have learned that mistreating others is a way to get fun and glory and material comfort?
Yes. That's what the white supremacists believe in. They believe, like all creatures believe in this, particularly people, all people. They believe in having fun. They believe in glory. Now, what is glory? Glory is being well thought of or looked up to or recognized by somebody. Somebody who wants to talk to you, somebody who wants to be around you. People go crazy if they don't get that. I mean, they go crazier because as it is now in the system of white supremacy, everybody on the planet has a huge dose of insanity. The entire planet as it is now. Now, this is according to the evidence that I see. This is just an opinion. According to logic, according to evidence, we're all insane. Why? Because if you have a system of government called the system of white supremacy that is the strongest government on the planet, and that system is designed to dominate and mistreat people based on color, and it's the dominant government on the planet called the system of white supremacy. That's an insane system, dominating and mistreating people based on color. Mistreating people is a form of insanity within itself. But certainly, if your dominant form of government on planet Earth is a system of mistreatment based on the color of one's skin, and that's the dominant philosophy of the entire planet, That is super crazy.
Super crazy.
So everybody who comes in that system, the practitioners of white supremacy and its victims, all of the people involved in that are, for the most part, insane people.
Mm-hmm.
So we should get rid of that insanity and replace it with what? A system of sanity, which would be what? Justice. Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Okay, got to leave it there, Mr. Fuller, because we are going into the second hour. So we'll pick that and up after the second hour.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for listening to the first hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller. Thank you for this year for those of you who have to go. But we have another hour, and we're going to try very hard to get in the show for all the calls and comments before the hour ends. So thank you for listening. You got to go. Bye. See ya. If you're going to stay, stay. Don't go away. We got more coming up in 5 seconds. All righty. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. We are delighted to have you in, and if you would like to join the program with us and with Mr. Fuller to ask questions and give a VGQ, do that with this number, 516-453-9921. And be sure to press the number 1 button. And when you do, a call screener will come on and get your name. I almost said your address. Anyway, they will get your name. And then you will get in line so that you can ask your question along with the others who are already before you. And if you are a first-time caller, make sure you tell the call screener your name. I don't know if that will be Robert Sharon or Moon Pie. One of those will take down your information, and then they will give it to me. That's right, I said they. They will give it to me, and then hopefully I can pronounce it properly and give you that introduction that you need. Okay. Make sure you do that. Okay. First-time callers, you know what to do. And make sure you tell them your name and all that good stuff. You can also contact me or the show by my Gmail address. That is at 7Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And I will not probably read it today. Not probably. Woo. I will probably not read it today. However, it will be read. I will send you a symbol that I do have it in my possession, and at a certain time before the machine would hopefully not knock it out, but sometime it deletes it, I will have a chance to read it and have Mr. Fuller address it. So make sure you do that. And lastly, you can go into the chat room, go to blogtalkradio.com. Make sure you do that, blogtalkradio.com. And then you want to put on where it says programs, and you want to get, when you do that, the Produce Justice Show is on the menu. Hit that bad boy, and you can go into the chat room by hitting the chat button. Now, don't be scared when you go in there, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in there, but there's a rhythm to that, and things are identified so you can clearly see what's going on. And you may not want to respond to any of it because it's nonsense. Whoa. Anyway, you can do that. You can do that. Important announcement. Next week, the 3rd of January, 2023, we will not, N-O-T, be on the air live. However, there will be a rebroadcast of a previous show. What that means is, do not call in. But, you know, some will call in anyway. But do not call in, because there will not be a live show. But on January the 10th, we'll be back live. So January the 3rd, next week, no show. But January the 10th, we will be back, live shows 2023. So make sure you put that in there and tell somebody who may not be on today's broadcast and inform them of that. Yes, spread the word. Spread the word. Spread the word. There's something else I was supposed to tell you, but it slips my mind. Ooh. Okay. Anyway, let me. Maybe when I think of it, I'll break in with a special announcement. Okay. Let's go back. Oh, yeah, I know what I was going to say. Make sure that you purchase the books. Yeah, that's it. This is important. Make sure that you purchase the books by going to producejustice.com. All the books, materials, upcoming shows, all the information you need. It is at producejustice.com, producejustice.com. And if you don't mind, at some point in this last hour, I'm going to give Mr. Fuller a chance to talk about that book or his publication. But in the meantime, and in between time, I'm waiting for this introduction from my man down in Houston. Cleo, it's you, man. Wait a minute. Yeah, there you go, Cleo. Do your thing, man.
Good morning, everyone. Long live NFJ and forever live Logic. My sincere appreciation to Mr. Bobby, Robert, Sharon, and Moonpie for your continued partnership with NFJ in this important work. Mr. Fuller, is it, logically speaking, correct or incorrect to think that a race war is inevitable should white supremacy continue to persist and exist?
According to the code, the war started when the first white person thought of the idea of inventing something called racism and white supremacy. That's when the war started. And the war has never stopped since then. Now, I don't know when it started. Some people say 400 years ago, roughly. Some people say 600 years. Some people say 2,000 years. And then a few people say 6,000 years. That's when the first white person, presumably, thought of an idea of doing all of the world's business on the basis of the color of one's skin that would cover all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So according to the evidence, since this thing called white supremacy and like the code says, the system of white supremacy in capital letters is the dominant government on the planet, and that dominant government is deliberately designed to dominate and mistreat people in order to produce fun, glory, and material comfort for everyone classified as white. That is a government that is at war with the people who are being dominated. That war has not stopped. Many people now are getting into a controversy, and it's very controversial, about talking about slavery. Slavery is just a part of the philosophy of mistreatment. That's a form of mistreatment that was around before there was ever any white supremacy, according to logic. The system of white supremacy didn't exist throughout the history of all of the people of the planet Earth, presumably. I don't think so, because some people put the limit at the very most at 6,000 years, but the most popular figure is 600 years. So that slavery came way before the system of white supremacy. Many people had slaves. According to some scholars, I would say most scholars, or most researchers, or most historians. But the most potent and most powerful form of slavery is the system of white supremacy. So whenever white supremacy began, that form of slavery has existed. And it is the most powerful form of slavery. It is the simplest and most popular form of slavery. And so people don't need to get into arguments or discussions about when did slavery begin or when slavery ended or who should get reparations, by the way. No, you get reparations for the system of white supremacy. And the only way to get that in a logical way, without a lot of argument and endless discussions, which is what we have now, we can do that simply by replacing the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. That's what the code says. You can settle this whole thing about slavery and whether or not we should have reparations and who should get what amount. We don't need to go through all that. That's an endless discussion. That's one that gets real complicated. How black is black? How white is white? What about people who are interracial? All this type of thing. That comes up. What about the Indians? Were they slaves? Or did the Indians have slaves? Or did they make slaves out of black people? That goes on and on and on. We don't need that kind of discussion. We just say white supremacy is the dominant government. Replace it with justice, in which that means guarantee that no person is mistreated and guarantee that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And you can do that in 15 minutes. That doesn't have to be a long, drawn-out, complicated affair, having this program and that little patchwork program, and we're going to compensate the people over here, and they're going to get X number of dollars or whatever currency you're going to use, diamonds, whatever. That's an endless thing. I can see that coming, according to logic. Anybody that looks into it that way is going to see where there's going to be a lot of back and forth before that type of approach will settle anything. Mm-hmm. So we can just do it simply while we're on it, while I'm discussing it right now, or at least projecting it out there according to the code. Just replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. And you can just say, anybody who needs anything really needs it and really needs something constructive, any help that they need, is going to get it. So that puts black people right at the front of the line. All right? If you're dismantling white supremacy. So you don't even have to discuss slavery. You can just say get rid of the system of white supremacy and replace it with a system of justice. Justice means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated. You got to do that. No person, white or non-white. And you got to guarantee that the person that needs help the most in whatever area of activity they need it in, they get that constructive help. End of story. We can do that, start doing it in the next 15 minutes, and just keep doing it forever.
Okay. All righty. Mr. Cleo, thank you for all your support and calls throughout 2022. Look forward to 2023. I don't have to tell you not to be a stranger because you ain't. Thank you, my brother. to construction action items and to AAA and to an extent Justice Warrior, I am speaking in code. The one thing that, in parenthetically, they can understand is if you ignore them. They need this. That's why they won't get a platform for a comment or comments that they make. They can't stand to be ignored. That's code. Ryan, you ready? Buffalo, I hope you're safe. Digging it out, brother. Here you go. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are safe. Thank you, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. How you guys doing? Mr. Fuller, really quick, what does the code say, or what do you say about black people with shame?
About black people what?
Dealing with shame.
Shame?
Yes, sir.
Well, I don't have anything written in the book, but shame means the same as embarrassment, I guess. And I think I mentioned something like that. I may have or may not have, but following the logic, black people, if they're going to be ashamed of not doing their best to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. But I say, rather than be ashamed, just say, what I'm going to do is make that my goal for my existence. Why? Because that's causing whatever shame I might have or whatever shameful things I'm involved in. The system of white supremacy is a shameful system. So everybody should be ashamed of allowing that system to be the prominent government of the entire planet and not have a government called a government of justice. And if black people are going to be ashamed, that should be where the shame is. And there is no other shame other than that. Because if you take care of that shame, everything else falls in place. The system of white supremacy itself is a shameful system, and everybody should be ashamed of it. If you're going to use the word ashamed at all, just say that. We can codify that right now. This is not in the textbook. We can just say, shame. How do you approach shame? Just like you asked. That's the question. All questions have answers. Get rid of the system of white supremacy, and then presumably we won't have a whole lot to be ashamed of. But
yes,
everybody should be ashamed of allowing that. And that's the biggest shame that there is, and all the other little shames, they're just that. They don't even count.
Don't even count. Got it. Ryan, Buffalo, be safe, man, because you guys got hit. Have mercy. Be safe, brother. Be safe. Okay. I haven't heard from this brother in a minute. Maybe 5 minutes. But we're going to go to the great state of New York. And we're going to get the holler from the dollar. Dollar Bill, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, gentlemen. And I want to say, I'm off for the week because, I'm in that school system. So
yes,
we're
sir.
off here. Yeah, Buffalo did get a big hit. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy holidays, first and foremost. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, for all your knowledge. I just wanted to say that piece last week about the plan, making a plan. I was wonderful. Whoever didn't hear that, you need to go back and listen to it. Then, and the next part was the today, asking white folks that question. But what I'm going to go right into, I'm going to take off from that and what Mr. Cleo was saying. Well, then, Mr. Fuller, is it, I want to use the word logical, but I'm scared to use it. But the fact of the matter is, we've been talking this for years. You get on, we talk about white supremacy and how this is what they look forward to, hurting people. We've been talking based on the color of their skin, and we've been talking about this, but we never get to that last chapter where we look at war. And I'm not saying that we should go to war, but I'm saying, how can we, you wrote the code, and how is it, let me just get to the question, is it how are we to rid the system of insanity with just a code and no fighting? It's no fighting it, and because it's based off the mistreatment of people's color of skin. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, the question is fighting. You are fighting the system of white supremacy. You, by you, I mean anybody. Anytime a person of color, a non-white person, does anything of constructive value, that's the criteria. You are fighting the system of white supremacy, I mean chokehold around the neck big time. Anytime a black person does anything that makes sense, you are fighting the system of white supremacy big time. We are highly trained to spend every one of our days, every one of our minutes, by the white supremacists to do stupid stuff. And we, collectively, black people, either out of ignorance or out of stupidity or a combination of both, worship stupidity and ignorance. Truth be told. And when we stop doing that, you're talking about war, counter-war, that's what you call counter-war. You are eliminating war because you're eliminating the biggest progenitor, the biggest producer of war, and that is those white people who believe in and practice the system of white supremacy. That is war. And anytime you counter what they are doing to keep that war going by doing things that are constructive rather than destructive, because war is about being destructive. Anytime a black person, for example, does anything that's constructive for all people, you are warring against the system of white supremacy, whether you realize it or not. Because if you're black in the system of white supremacy, you're never, ever supposed to do anything that makes sense, except when you do it to make the system of white supremacy stronger. That's the white code. Here comes the black person. Get that black person to do something stupid. That's war. Stupidity is war. Anytime somebody helps you to do anything stupid, they're making war on you big time. So if you do something that's logical and constructive, you are committing counter-war. You are working against war, because that's not supposed to happen if you're black. Never do anything that makes sense if you're black, unless you are being coached to help a white person do something that makes sense. That is the system of white supremacy in a nutshell. So, in answer to your question, how do you use war? You don't put war aside. You're in a war. War was declared on you before you were born if you're a person of color. So you're already in the war. What you're trying to do is eliminate war. Because the biggest producer of war are those white people who believe in and practice the system of white supremacy. Anytime you putting them out of business by doing something that makes sense, something of constructive value, that will be of constructive value for all people, something like producing justice, that's counter war. You're eliminating war right there.
Okay. The holler for the dollar. Appreciate you, bruh. And you calling in all year long. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Tell you what, I'm going to take a little break so we can go straight through. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, if you'd like to call in, and we certainly would love for you to do that, for the remaining minutes that we have for today's program in 2022, call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button. And if you are a new caller, be sure to tell the call screener, whoever is on there in that position, give them your name so that Mr. Bobby can introduce you and hopefully, without jacking it up, give you the proper introduction. Don't be scared and don't be long. Just do it. That's for first-time callers. You can also reach me by Gmail, which will not be read today, I can assure you that, by doing this. My Gmail address, the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. And I will give you a symbol that I have received your Gmail. So thank you for doing that. And you can also join the chat room. Go to blogtalkradio.com. And when you do that, you want to, where it says programs, hit that bad boy, and the Produce Justice show will come up. You hit that, and then you can go into the chat, and there are some very interesting conversations going in there. In fact, I just text somebody. They use a term that I may exploit in the remaining time that we have here. But if you want to know something, you need to ask the person who said it. So they wrote it, so I'm interested in the response. And they know who they are before I say it. Besides, I can pronounce that name anyway. It's I'm having difficulty pronouncing it. Been practicing, but I don't know. Maybe if you phonetically give it to me, then I can do it. But, get in there and get into the chat room and, find out what's going on. Important message. Again, this is the last time I think I'm going to make it today. For next week's show, only for next week, January the 3rd, there will be no live show. No live show. We're going to take a week off. So don't call the show next week. Don't do that. However, on January the 10th, we will be back live at 9 a.m. to receive your new calls in 2023. Okay? So make a note of that. Tell your friends and those who are not on the air, tell them so that they can do that and get on there. Okay? All righty. All right, now, what we're going to do here, and I see you there, RT, and I see you there, George. Thank you, Dollar Bill, again. Mr. Fuller, we didn't do this the first hour, but I did mention it at the end of the program. And there have been several people on today's program, Mr. Fuller, that have made reference to your books, and in particular today, the Word Guide. I would love for you to take a few minutes for those who are new to the program to speak about your book. So, Mr. Fuller, the floor is yours.
Well, there's the original book, goes back to 1984. Some people prefer that to the updated version, which was 2016. They say it's a better book, better written, a little bit cheaper, All of the books that I have are kind of expensive, but I hope that they pay for themselves by the uses that they can be put to. That's how I want people to think of the book. The book shouldn't be bought if it can't carry its own weight, can't solve problems for you, help you to solve problems, help you as an individual. That's why I wrote them. And then the word guide will help you through what words to use. If you're at a meeting and someone is talking and they're using certain words, well, you can just, if you're going to be speaking, you can use some of the definitions that are in the word guide to help you to do what? Solve whatever problems you're talking about. If the meeting is about problem solving, and most meetings that mean anything, or most meetings you should be attending, if not all meetings, should be about problem solving. Otherwise, why are you at a meeting? That's a question. Because in the textbook itself, in problem solving, it says that we are here, we meaning the people on planet Earth, all people, are put here, logically speaking, to solve problems. So the textbooks for victims of white supremacy says that the biggest problem on the planet is the race problem. And why do we have a thing called, quote, unquote, race problem? It's because someone invented something called racism. And what is racism? Something called the system of white supremacy. And why is that such a big problem? Because you can't solve any other problem without solving that one when it comes to people. Why? Because the problem about what color somebody is the biggest problem among the people of the planet, according to what? Neely Fuller? No, according to the evidence. Everybody talks about it, whether they're talking about economics. You can't talk about economics without talking about race, if you're serious. Any problem that has to do with economics, meaning basic economics, meaning what? What is economics? The use of time and energy. If you start talking about people on this planet using time and energy, you're going to be talking about the race problem, because the race problem is deeply involved in how all people use their time and their energy. And if you're talking about education, people all over the world right now going at each other, making huge sacrifices to get what? Education. And they say, well, why is education such a big problem? Because the white supremacists determined what is education. And a lot of people right now, as I speak right now, are saying, which way did the white people go? That's people of color. That's what the book is about now. I'm still talking about the book. People of color. When they think about education, they think about what? One question. Which way did the white people go? Stop and think about it now. I don't care whether you're in so-called Nigeria or whether you're in called the Holy Land or whether you're in Philadelphia or whether you're in a Las Vegas at a gambling table. If the subject of getting an education comes up in any setting, anywhere on the planet, here in the last of the year 2022, and you're a person of color, first thing you got to think about is, which way did the white people go? If I am going to get an education. Think about it, folks. Is that true or false? Because you don't let anybody get away with something false, including Neely Fuller. When you think about education, you better be thinking about where are the white folks. Because you ain't going to get no education without white folks, period. You can talk about this black stuff all you want to, but in order for you to get credentialized, and black people love to talk about their credentials, you better be looking around for somebody white, because somebody black can't help you. Because they're looking around for somebody white. Now, this is all about the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Now, I'm either saying things that are true or false. Because even if you get your education from a black person, that black person, and many of them brag about it, it's because I matriculated at Oxford. That gives me credibility, meaning your diplomas or your whatever you got, saying you were educated, had to have a white signature on it. Now, that's just in education alone, not to say anything about the rest of the areas of activity. But the textbook says it's still a rotten system because it's designed to mistreat people, this system of white supremacy. They know how to handle things, but it does a terrible job when it comes to handling people.
Oh, okay. You can get the book by going to?
ProduceJustice.com. And all of the instructions and the recommendations are right there at that website.
Alrighty. Okay.
ProduceJustice.com.
ProduceJustice.com. And I'm glad you said that, Mr. Fuller, because there is a discussion going on right now, which we did address earlier in today's program. And to this person that I'm speaking with, the only reason why I'm not pronouncing your name because I'm not real good at phonetically saying it, but whatever, I'll just say number 7. Listen, the term that Mr. Fuller had in his book, in his word guide, which he just was speaking about along with the other publication that he has, which you can get at ProduceJustice.com. I'm looking at the page, and one of the callers spoke about the page and pointed the page out about the word nigger and nigger lover, I believe it was. Yeah, nigger and nigger lover. It's on page, I said 260. It's on page 261 at the top, and then Mr. Fuller gives the correct usage of it and the incorrect usage. Then he gives some notation below that, and then he defines nigger lover. And the first thing he says, do not use this term, and then he goes in to it. So it is on there. So I don't know. You say you got the word. You said you got it. Wasn't in your box set. Well, I don't know if you got it from. You didn't get that from ProduceJustice.com because it's in here. I received my book from ProduceJustice.com, and I'm looking at it right here. So check that out, and go from there. That is the truth. There's no lie. I got it right in my hand. You can't see it, but anyway, it's here. ProduceJustice.com is where you get all the information and explanations. And these are suggestions, by the way. Mr. Fuller is not telling you what to do, just as a suggestion that you may think about it logically. Logically. All right. RT, man, been trying to get you on, and you made it. Do your thing, man.
Yeah, 2 VGQs. First thing, Dr. Fuller was talking about education. I was thinking about these historically black colleges. Whenever black young men or black people come out of these historically black colleges with a degree, they got to go and talk to somebody white once they get their degree. I'm sure Mr. Fuller would agree with that. That's the first VGQ. And the second VGQ is every time Dr. Fuller comes on this show, he talks about black people being in prison. And here's the thing. Who goes to prison but people who break laws? And breaking laws is doing things that are non-constructive. So Mr. Fuller has been giving us the answers ever since he's been coming on these shows. Start doing things that are constructive. That's the way out of this prison that he continues to talk about. I'm out of here. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, you have a comment on whatever what Mr. RT was speaking of about the way out of the prison system?
Well, he said what the code says, and the code is not about Neely Fuller. The code is anything that works. Everybody should be writing code. Anytime you have a plan of any kind, it should be a codified plan, meaning it's designed that when you do it, it's going to work. Otherwise, it's got no business being called a code, a compensatory code. Compensatory means making up for what's missing. And what's missing is justice. What's missing is correctness. Correctness means interacting with things in the correct manner. Like, just a simple thing like what you put in your body. You putting that poison in your body, sometimes called food, but it's not. And then you put other types of things like you're going to be inhaling smoke. Well, what does the smoke do? See, that's the question. Well, it makes me feel good. But is it doing something constructive? Because a lot of things that you feel may not be constructive. Lots of things make people what they call feel good, when it's actually something that, if you want to use the word bad, it's having a bad effect. But it makes you feel like you're having a good effect. And people can attest to that by what happens when you drink and drive. It's not an excellent combination. Drink what? Drink something that shouldn't be in your body when you're going to drive or when you're going to do anything that makes sense. It's not helping you. It's breaking you down. Your body is rebelling. Your body lets you know when you're doing something that is disagreeable. You put incorrect things in your body, and you get what? You get signals from your body. Your body is an organism that really has a, quote, life of its own. In your body, your stomach will start growling, and you say, my stomach hurts. Well, that's your body telling you. I'm sending you a message. I'm sending something from your stomach to your mind, and that something is a message. Don't throw none of that stuff back down here no more. This is not that kind of center. We don't handle that kind of stuff. This is pure poison. We don't handle poison. We make it come back up. Well, if you don't do something about it, I will, and your stomach will cause you to vomit sometimes. But every now and then your stomach says, I can't tell this idiot nothing. So I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let it sit here. I ain't going to do no work at all. Then your stomach shuts down, and you begin to do what? You begin to die. That's what happens.
Yes,
see, this is not Neely Fuller's code. This is the code of the universe. And if you tap into the laws of the universe, you are solving problems. That's all the code book is about. All Neely Fuller does is point to the signs, saying where the logic is. Once I stumble up on it myself, to the extent that I do. But you can stumble up on logic anywhere. Just start saying, is this logical? Does this work? If it works and it produces a constructive result, you don't have to consult anybody. You don't have to go to a psychiatrist. Just say, hey, this solves a problem. The problem was once here, now it's not here. That's code right there. When you do it and it's a problem solved, that's automatically code. They say, well, Fuller, people ask me, where's the whole code? There's no such thing as a whole code. Until when? Till all problems are solved. All the compensatory code is about solving problems. When you solve a problem, you are codified. If every time you are confronted with the problem, you do the things that will solve the problem in the most constructive manner. Now, it's got to be constructive. Otherwise, you are solving one problem and making 2 or 3 other problems. And a part of the code is solve problems without making any. Keep that in mind going forward in this next year. Solve problems, but don't make new problems in the process of solving one problem. You make 3 other problems.
Mm-hmm.
That's not codified at all. Solve the problem and don't make no more other problems following it out of that one problem that you thought you solved, because you didn't.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Let's do it. Continuing in. Back for a second slice of the action. We go back up to Toronto and George. We'll do you, George. You are it again.
Oh, hi, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller. I was just thinking that when you answered my question about insanity, and I was just thinking, is insanity also? I mean, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is that how can the white supremacist racists create a system that mistreats people, and they think that mistreating people is a way how to live their life on the planet. I don't really understand why they think mistreating people is the way how to live.
Because that's what they have chosen. It's not fun. See, people do things for 3 reasons: fun, glory, and material comfort. Not only people, if you observe, but animals are the same way. You see deer, looks like they're fighting. Sometimes they really are. But most of the times, they're just playing. They're having fun. You see squirrels chasing each other. They're not trying to do harm to each other. They run around the trees. I've seen them go round and round, going up the tree, and then doing the same thing coming back down, chasing each other, going around the tree as they come down at high speed. I've seen them do that. Many other people probably have too. They're having fun. Then the other thing is glory. Everybody wants to be appreciated. That's why people have pets. Pets usually appreciate their owners. And the owners take care of their pets. Lots of people spend big money on what? On your dog. Why? Because the dog gives them glory. That's what that dog is really doing. Your pet cat comes and rubs up against your leg after you feed it. Cats really want to. Cats more than any animals that people call pets, I think. This is just my opinion. They believe in that law of compensation. They believe if you're going to keep them around for a pet, you better feed them. And cats are not as appreciative as dogs. A lot of people say they don't like cats for that reason. See, cats don't give you a lot of return on your investment, okay, as far as appreciation. Appreciation means what? That you're getting glory. People don't think about it like that, but that's why they buy that dog. Why? Because they expect that dog to look up to them, to make them feel better about themselves. Well, nobody cares anything about me, but my dog does. That's what you're saying when you buy a dog. You're saying my dog, I'm kind of guaranteed that appreciation will be shown.
Mm-hmm.
But a cat is a little more selfish. I have observed. Cats will go and look at that bowl, and if it's empty, that cat will just look at you with those cat eyes, as if to say, "It's feeding time. What's the matter with you? Don't you know how to fill this bowl?"
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. Thank you, George in Toronto. You've been in here, hanging in there all year long. Mr. Fuller, on your books that you have mentioned in particular this year, I don't know if you've added any, but I know one of the books that you had made mention of was, I believe it was called Race Code War.
Yes, by Kahari and Aharo of Ohio. He has a radio program, too. And he might be on local TV in Ohio, out of Columbus, Ohio. He wrote a book called Race Code Wars. He also has a book called The Race Code Sex Wars or something like that. I don't know the title of it. I don't have a copy of it. But I have a copy of his Race Code Word Wars. And I have glanced through that book, and it's an excellent book. And a lot of times when I'm here on my program, ProduceJustice.com, I mention that book, but not as often as I should, because the person who wrote that book had me on his programs many a time down through the years when I wasn't welcome anyplace else. Mr. Kahari Inaharo, he's the author of that book. And he makes reference to my book in his book.
Yes.
But I was also on his programs for many years. Unfortunately, for reasons which I could not control under the system of white supremacy, I had to come off of his program and really produce my own ProduceJustice.com. But I do recommend that book that he wrote. It's a small paperback, but it's packed with things that will cause a person to think.
Race Code
about
War?
The use of words. There's a lot in it from what I've seen. I haven't read most of the book. I've just read parts of it. But from what I've seen, it's well done, very well done, much more well done than mine.
Okay. You said Race
opinion.
Code War and Race Sex War, or what was that?
Yes, but it's by Kahari Inaharo.
Okay.
But if people will just think of that title, Race Code Word Wars, I think that's the title of it, by Kahari Inaharo, and ask for it at a bookstore. I think it's an excellent book. There are probably a lot of excellent books out here being written that I don't know about. But I'm saying the way out of this thing about race and racism is that black people need a code for everything. And why do I say we need a code, which is something we don't have? We need a code. A code is nothing but a set of rules that you make for yourself as an individual, that when you do it, it always works in a constructive manner for you or for others. That's when you know it's code. It always works for you and for others, and produces a constructive result. Always keep those two words in mind. Does it help produce constructive results? Because if it doesn't, it's not a part of your code and shouldn't be a part of anybody else's. And you let people know that.
I'm looking at what you just said, and you're correct. It is by Kahari Inaharo. I'm looking at it. It's from Amazon. It says Race Code War, The Power of Words, Images, and Symbols on the Black Psyche. Author Kahari Inaharo. Yeah, okay.
And what's his other one? He should have another one there on sex.
Well,
people are interested in sex.
Wait a minute. No, they just have this one there, but I can check that out. You say Sex Code War, is that correct? Is that what it is?
Something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
I've never seen that book.
Okay.
I don't even know the title of it.
Okay.
But I've heard about it being published. He wrote a second book, and that's about black people and sexuality.
Okay. All right.
I've never seen it. I don't have any idea what's in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably very interesting because his first book about words.
I'll check that. Yeah, check that out.
Is interesting.
Yes, I'll put that down. As a matter of fact, I'm writing it down now. Anybody that's been with Mr. Fuller, and of course Mr. Fuller and I have where we were on TalkTainmentRadio.com that Mr. Kahari Inaharo did produce, and one of the people that would call in, and people love this guy, was let's see here, Extermination Man. He always would have his predictions about that, and somebody had asked about that, and I thought I would ask again. Anybody know the whereabouts of Extermination Man? Please tell him that we are now on ProduceJustice.com. People have been asking for him. Particularly, last I heard, he was in the greater Chicago, Illinois area. So if you know about him or whatever, just make mention that Mr. Bobby has said and that people have been asking about him, Extermination Man. Okay, Mr. Fuller, guess what? We are coming down to the end. We got about 3 minutes. So I'm going to give that 3 minutes to you, or at least 2.5, before we sign off. What would you like to say during that time? ProduceJustice.com, everybody. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
I'm going to start with, I'm going to finish with what we started with in the first hour, and that's someone who said something that had to do with failure. And I'm saying, don't even think about that, because that's what the code philosophy is. In the context is usually given. Black people will say, well, it seems like everything we're trying to do is just failing. Keep on trying. That's code. That's rock solid code. Say, yeah, but we don't seem to be getting no results. We're not, according to the code. But that's all the more reason to keep trying. That's what that word hope is about. That's what the word persistence is about. Keep on keeping on. You hear it in different type of slogans down to the millennia. You hear about all kind of stories where that example is set. The ant and the rubber tree plant. They have a song about it. You know, that everybody knows that ant can't move that rubber tree plant, but he has what? High hopes. High hopes. High, way up in the sky, hopes. Oops, there goes another rubber tree plant.
Okay.
You probably heard that song. It goes way back. There's all kinds of songs about just keep on keeping on. Memphis Slim, as you go through life, you can't help knowing you can always get help, but only the way you're going.
Only the way you're
going. Just keep on, keep on, keep on. One of these days you wind up getting where you've been trying to go. One step at a time. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yeah. All righty. Well, guess what? We have reached the end of the program. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers, chatters, We didn't read any Gmails today, but it's been a good program. Thank you. We'll try to do better in the next year. Remember, no show next week, January the 3rd. We'll be back January the 10th. Everybody be safe. Final word for you, Mr. Fuller.
ProduceJustice.com.
We'll end it right there. Thank you, everybody. ProduceJustice.com.
Go to the site and get the book. That's a start.